All right, next, let's evaluate the student here. Uniforms are very, very important. Never have the strings of your apron exposed. It shows a very unprofessional look, and also a pressed apron is very, very important as well to the appearance of the chef. Look at the towel, okay? What I see here is a very used towel. You want to always start off with a very clean, very nicely pressed white towel. If you have a towel that is not white, disregard it and get fresh, clean, pressed towels. A dirty towel means that it's been soiled, it's been used over and over again, and it's a chance of having cross-contamination. Another thing that we noticed that this student did wrong, never use parchment paper to gather or collect any of your peels. Always lay saran wrap onto your cutting board. The saran wrap will be able to wrap up your product to be able to store it or place it in the trash without having any of the debris fall out with the parchment paper there. Never use parchment paper. The next question we have here for the student, did the student take the time to wash his vegetables? Very important. It's another area to introduce cross-contamination. Very, very important that you wash all your vegetables prior to bringing it to your sanitized station. We noticed that the student did not tuck his fingers. This is a very, very dangerous practice here. Having the carrot sitting on a slippery surface with the parchment paper here is introducing a very, very bad, dangerous hazard. Always keep your carrot in hand, fingers tucked tightly, and peel away from the body. First thing we notice with the student here, inconsistencies in the peeling of the product. Very noticeable unpeeled surfaces on the carrot there. It's very, very important that you inspect your product, make sure that it's properly peeled, and if there are any blemishes or cracks, make sure you remove those ends. Those ends can be used for stocks or other practices. As you can see here, the student is having a very difficult time cutting through the carrot. Very important that the proper motion is used. Double check and make sure the knife is sharp, hone in on the steel, and go back into cutting the product. Too much pressure can cause injury to the student. Carrots should be kept in water. You want to avoid dry carrots. You want to avoid any cracking. So always keep water to keep your product in. As you can notice here that the blade is still stained with a lot of starch and a lot of debris from the cuts. It's very important that in between cuts, you inspect your knife. If you need to wipe it, sanitize it, that's the time to do so. Always have a clean knife before going into the next cut. Here, we see another problem. Always start with the very tip of the knife. That's the thinnest and sharpest part of the knife. Always start at the tip and work with the proper motion. Never start at the middle and press. Pressing will cause inconsistencies in the slices and also possibly endanger the chef. It's important that you evaluate the stability of your product. If you have a product that is wobbly or unsafe, it's best to lay the product flat and then continue with your cut. It's best to remove that product without causing any injury or harm. First thing that I noticed with the student, the placement of the fingers, the hands, is in a very, very dangerous position. Never point your fingers towards the edge of the blade. Always tuck the knuckles, tuck the fingers. This can easily cause injury to the chef and also create inconsistent product. Once again, notice the positioning of the hand. Always very important. Proper technique, proper placement of the hand will ensure even, consistent cuts, as well as protect the chef or the student. The onion, first thing that we notice, is it clean? Is it trimmed before bringing it to the cutting board? Once again, always remember, lay a sheet of saran wrap, plastic wrap, down onto the cutting board before placing the unpeeled onion onto the cutting board. This can create a very unsafe, unsanitary area, as well as create cross-contamination. Here we notice that the end of the onion have yet to be removed. It's very important in the initial process of peeling the onion that you remove the tip as well as the frizzy ends of the onion. Having the end to the onion also introduce dirt and debris to the cutting board and to the working surface here. Very important to crop the top as well as remove the end of the onion before going into the final cut. We notice once again, the student have his fingers pointing towards the blade. This can easily create a very dangerous and hazardous condition, especially with the onion being unleveled. The onion will wobble, the blade can bend, and create a very dangerous and very unsafe situation. We've noticed that the student had the potato in water, but the potato was not submerged in the water. Make sure that you start off with a very clean, clear container. If the container is smudged, a lot of stains, most times that container is unsanitary. Always make sure that you use clean, sanitary product anytime you're dealing with your knife cuts. Also, please be mindful that the potato must stay submerged in cold water or the potato will begin to oxidize. Never use the sawing motion. Sawing motion can create rivets and wrinkles inside of your cut. Always work with a nice smooth flow, cut with a nice motion, and always make sure that your knife is sharp. We've noticed the student squaring off the potato. The student have taken off quite a amount of potato on both ends of the potato here. It's very important that in the process of squaring off your potato, you want to make sure that you pay attention to accuracy, consistency, as well as yield. Too much potato removed can easily become waste. You want to make sure that you're only removing the very ends of the potato. Also, please be mindful of the starch. Starch is an indication that the potatoes have been left out too long. Potatoes should always be kept in water after peeling. We've noticed that the student had to remove the potato off the blade each time he made a cut. This is a good indication that there's a lot of starch content on this blade. That's the time where you make the evaluation, you wipe your blade clean, and you continue with your knife cut. We notice that the student is slowly working towards the heel of the knife. The heel of the knife is used for chopping and mincing. The sharpest part of the knife is at the tip. Very important with delicate cuts like a julienne that you stay in the top half of the knife. Clean, even, smooth strokes will give you a clean surface on each and every one of your julienne. We notice that the student is having a very difficult time with the potato sliding. Anytime you have a potato that is sliding, it's important that you lay them out a little bit thinner, don't stack them so high, and then continue in your knife cut. Notice the motion of the knife. Blade is still connected to the cutting board. Always reposition yourself after each stroke from tip to middle of the blade, tip to middle of the blade. Never leave the blade connecting or placed on the cutting board. This forces the blade to rotate instead of using the knuckles as a guide to shift the blade throughout the cuts. Here we notice the student is attempting to dice the julienne cuts. Once we notice here that there's too much product, too many sticks there to cut through. As you will see, the student will continue in this motion and will have inconsistent dices. And we notice how the blade is angled and the product is beginning to shift. Never use more than 4 strips at a time to get nice, even, consistent, small dice. Here we notice the student attempting to create cubes from sticks. And we notice each cut is inconsistent. We go from a large, medium, small, brunoise, very inconsistent knife cuts there.